Hey, hey,
Hi.
excited to dive into Wix Dev Tools today. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy it all worked out. Like end of year confusion last week. I feel like everywhere I looked, I saw streams that were getting rescheduled, and I was like, oh, good, it's not just me.
That was a total mistake on my side because you told me the right time, but it was a time zone thing. But I agree
Well,
that the
who
holidays was
knows?
chaos.
I was just like, oh no, what am I doing? And I was like, am I supposed to be somewhere? Like all the different ways to message you. I was like, let me find Tessa. I was like, but it made me set up something. Like I played with I didn't have a studio site before because I was just coming back from the holidays and I was like, I don't really have anything to show her. So if we don't end up naturally finding something to talk about, I was like, I wanted something to play with. So it made me make it really quick on Thursday. Even
Oh, well, there we go then. I mean, there's always like something to like play with or dive into. Like, I
yeah.
think even just generally as like thinking about Wix, right? Like, I didn't realize their heavy investment in developers. Hey, can you
It's
remind
crazy.
me, did Wix send the Bose headphones out to people when they
Oh,
started?
no. See, everybody remembers that. That's so funny. So that was before my time, but I heard
But
about
that
that.
was Wix, right?
That was Wix.
Okay,
That was a marketing failure, or maybe it wasn't because people are still talking about the company. So all
not a
all
failure.
all chatter is good chatter, right?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, like they always want to hear from the community at large, the developer community at large when they're doing things. So they do stuff like send you stuff. And I guess like I said, before my time, so maybe the commentary or the way they approached it was just a little like unusual, but they love to send out like proper gifts for your time. If you're going to review our product, if you're going to work with us, if you're a content creator, like it seems like it's a good, like sometimes I look at it and I'm like, man, I should be on the other side of this.
Hey, I got the headphones. It was awesome. Like
Right?
it really, really made me, and obviously they were like a, kind of a, I don't want to say attacking or approaching, right? What's the right word? They were like
Yeah.
sort of chasing down, I guess, the WordPress people, and so it was,
Yeah.
it honestly, it made me really, really, it made me feel valued. It was like, wow,
Oh, well,
they
that's
see
good.
me,
Oh,
like they
that's a
see
good
my
thing.
work.
I'd say that's probably the
Yeah.
only good feedback I've heard about that moment. Usually it's like, this is silly. This is, you clearly didn't know your audience, but also we like the headphones.
I think they did exactly what they should have done. They definitely rippled inside of the WordPress community. People were talking about Wix, people were
That's
talking
great.
about both good and bad, right? And I think one of the
Yeah.
things I always tell
Well,
my
that's a good
clients like
thing. It's just starting you want a conversation. You as a company, like, that makes a product if nobody's talking about your product, you don't know what to do. You don't know if people are using it, if they like it, if they hate it, and if you don't know anything, then you have no place to go except, like, guessing. You're just guessing. So anything that starts conversation is good.
yes, yes, I agree. Well, and also like I tell my clients this, and I don't necessarily mean this in a negative way, but I tell my clients to hit them in the feelers when it comes to developers. And it's not because I'm like, you should actually hit them, right? It's because developers are so darn opinionated that if you can pull on any of those opinion strings, then
Mhm.
that like unleashes the argument, right? Like, is
Yeah.
it tabs versus spaces? Is it
Oh my god.
whatever it might be, right? And I think that whether that be negative or positive, you have people talking. And I think that's the value
Absolutely.
that you get out of that. And the headphone gimmick thing, they had people talking, they had WordPress people looking at Wix, and I am guessing that there was some value from that.
Yeah.
And if anything, they should do it now. Drop
Who
those word,
knows?
drop those headphones to the WordPress people now.
Yeah, yeah. I pay attention to all competitor products, and
Hmm.
honestly, everything that has gone on in that community is just really sad to me. It's just such
It
a
so
mess,
is. It so is.
and it's like, oh man, because there's room for WordPress and Wix and Webflow. There's room for all of us.
Hmm.
We want you to know about us. We want you to always consider us if you have a client.
Right.
But we don't believe that everybody else needs to go away for us to be successful. So when you see a community like really struggle like that, like it's just sad. And like
Hmm.
we didn't get involved. Like I know I saw some articles and things from different competitors, like how to
Yep.
migrate this and that. And not that we didn't think about these ideas. Like you always
Yep.
think about like, should we say anything? Should we do anything? And it just didn't feel right because it just felt like such an emotional time. It
Yep.
wasn't the time to capitalize on the chaos to us.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we landed. And like, but you have those discussions. If you see somebody faltering, you're like, okay, is this a good time to be like, hey, we're over here or not? And like, I think it would have been a bad time. I think it was a good decision to stay out of that and just
Sure.
keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I agree, and I think it is really, even for just generally for like the web developer sort of ecosystem, it is really it's an unfortunate thing. I think that it's maybe not going down in the best way that it needs to, but I do think that the end result is going to be really great. I don't know what that end
Yeah.
result is going to be, but I think WordPress is vibrant, right? And I think that
Mhm.
when you want that open source solution, it's definitely a valuable solution, but there's a lot of value in hosted solutions like Wix. Like I
Mhm.
personally, even though I've built websites for years and feel like I've got pretty decent technical chops there, like sometimes I just don't want to do that. I want to go somewhere where I can be sort of hand delivered this beautiful little solution and this
Mhm.
ecosystem with all the tools and things that I need. So I think
Yeah.
there's always, like you said, there's room for everybody. And there's so many people who need
Yeah.
websites that it's like the total addressable market is
There's
never
so
approachable by one vendor.
no, and there's pros and cons to each product too, and you have to decide when you use them what part of it speaks to you
Yep.
and what part of it is so so you can make that informed decision for your clients and then also be able to explain to your clients like this just because these have the ability to drag and drop and just because I can like deploy in one click instead of knowing how to build a deployment pipeline, that doesn't mean that it's easy to
Yep.
launch your business and to build this website and to maintain it. There's other things to think about. And the kind of people that build on these kind of platforms, it's because they need to be able to focus on business, on SEO, on
Mhm.
marketing, on everything. And so they can't dedicate all of their mental energy to every single part of the stack. So they pick the part that calls to them, or if you're a designer, pick the part that calls to them.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's really cool. And yeah, when I started here, I didn't even know the full extent of kind of how they were shifting towards opening, like breaking apart the no code platform so that developers can pick and choose what serves them, but while still maintaining that integrity for the people that don't actually want to know anything about code, they should still be able to build a beautiful site too. And
Yes.
it's hard to serve both of those populations. It really is because they both
Mhm.
want very different things from us, and so it's a constant balance to be like, how can we break this apart so a developer can essentially make it in a more composable way and use the parts of our system that help them and leave the rest of it behind? And how can a no code developer actually still build a site that's up to today's standards without
Yep.
having to learn a whole new skill they don't want to learn? So
I really
it's hard.
I love that, and I'm sure that that is a hard challenge because they're so different, right? Just like I'd said, developers are so opinionated. So how you go about that
Passionate.
and the ways that they can do it, we can say that because we know, right? We are
Yeah.
them. But as a business leader, like absolutely, I don't have time to spend on my website. Like my website's on card right now, like a one page landing page because I don't have time. I hate it. A card is beautiful, by the way. Love card. If you need a
I
one page
haven't
landing
used
page,
it. Yeah,
oh
I'm
my gosh,
aware of it, but haven't built anything in it.
10 minutes, 10 minutes because I already had my messaging. It was just like boom, boom, dragging it all around and I'm like done.
Yeah.
But I
The
think
value you're
that
bringing right now isn't showing that you can build that from scratch. So it's like, why
exactly,
do it?
exactly, exactly.
If you need to
But
show that, you'll show it.
right, right. I'll be like, hey, look at my Google Lighthouse test, baby.
Here's my
Look at this constant.
GitHub.
Yeah, exactly. But as a business owner, I don't care about that. Like I need my website to be functional and I need it to present beautifully to my clients in the way that they need it, right? My clients are
Yeah.
usually developers themselves, so a part of it
Mhm.
needs to be a little techy and kind of fun, but I don't need to build this huge like whatever it is, Laravel, Next.js with Tailwind and blah 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 and Astro and all the things, right? I just
I
need
would
function.
question if you set up Laravel just to build like a one-page marketing landing page. Like, what are you doing here?
Valid. I wanted to learn Laravel, so that was
But
one of
yeah,
my
that might be
decisions.
the
But
reason. Like, if you wanna learn, go for it. But, like, yeah,
yeah.
developers aren't stupid either. When we see your
Yep.
landing page on whatever you put it up with, like, that's not your technical expertise. That's literally your
Yes.
business. That's your messaging, and, like, developers know the difference. So it's like, if you wanna learn, do it. But if you have your everything out your business together, you have a portfolio of projects, whatever it is that you do, just set up your landing page as quickly as possible. Get your messaging out there. Start making some money.
Yes, yes. Thank you. That's exactly what it was. I just need to make money. So here is
Oh
my
my
website.
god. Oh man.
But I am going to convert it into like a productized service eventually. So I'm actually working on that right now, is like the prototypes and that. So that was why I was thinking Laravel originally,
Yeah, I
just to
love
speak to
Laravel.
that
Huge
decision.
fan. Huge fan.
Yeah. So I've never used it, but I've used a lot of PHP, right? Joomla, Drupal, WordPress, that kind of whole
Oh
stack in the
man,
open source side.
you're going
Yeah,
old school, throwing it back.
I know. Right. So I'm like, with my PHP skills, I'm like, I feel like I should try Laravel. Right. So, but I haven't. I've
It's a
never.
fun ecosystem. I don't have a reason to use it, but it's one of those like
Mhm.
I got to use it in a previous job and enjoyed the experience, and I've seen how it evolved so much so that I'm like, man, I wish I had an excuse to do that again. And I just really don't.
I know. Same.
I
It's not a
really
good enough
don't.
excuse.
I was like, I can, if I'm doing it, I'll do it for fun on my own, like, because at least for work. And I always, as a developer advocate, I'm like, can I make something work? And then I can do it
Yes.
during the workday
Yes.
instead of my free time. But for Laravel, I'm like, there's just no reason for me to do it this way.
Fine.
But I'm so excited by what they're doing with that ecosystem and how they're really, what I think is really cool. And I love when I see different ecosystems do this, is trying to embrace how JavaScript developers think and build, not
Mhm.
necessarily saying like you have to come over here, but also like we realize that maybe there's some reasons you might want to explore this system too. So we want to get involved with how you think and how you build. So this system is attractive to anybody who wants to use it, and like doing that, meeting a developer where they're at instead of saying no to come here, you have to change your whole mentality. Like I think it's
Yes.
really cool the way they're approaching it.
Yes, I agree. I actually got to chat with Hank, who's like leading their, I believe their marketing or their go to market now. He's a really known sort of dev tool marketer, great human being. But it was a really interesting conversation around sort of how they're trying to approach and message and sort of pitch Laravel, right? Of like, what can you find? Because we even had a good conversation. Because when I went to the actual website, I was like, okay, where does Laravel start and stop, right? What parts do I need to bring in? Is there a content management system? Like,
Mhm.
is authentic, like what are the bits that are included, right? And so then I understood that essentially it's like it's just the technical stack, and it's not just, right, it's still a beautiful stack, but you still have to bring sort of a content management system into that. You still have to bring
Yeah,
sort of a front end into it. And I was like, okay, this, like you said, far more complicated than it needs to be, especially for just a website right
it
now.
is really complicated.
Yeah, but even so, I was like, okay, but there's so many different libraries and add-ons to it too, of like,
Mhm.
okay, well, we had this solution for this and now this solution for that. And so I think thinking about sort of the curious devs is what I always call JavaScript developers, right? Is like any of those developers that are sort of, they're not necessarily always new in their career, but they
Mhm.
are sort of in that essence of like curiosity. And that does tend to tie to earlier stage, earlier career. But it's that curious group, right? And they're like, I just want to learn all the things. And so they'll play with any tool that you throw their way because that's just how they
Like me.
are.
Unfortunately, that means that I try a little bit of everything.
Yes, but that's good. That's
Sometimes
beautiful.
it's good. It serves me well, but it wouldn't serve
Yeah.
everybody well. But I love when I see something, I'm like, oh, cool. What's that? How does it work? Satisfy
Yes.
that curiosity. If it's actually applicable, then I'll continue to use it. But yeah, so once I started
Hmm.
like Laravel was releasing some new things and like the Alpine JS and all that kind of stuff, I was like, ooh, what's this? And then again, okay, I
Yep.
really need to not focus on this. So satisfy the curiosity, move back on it.
Yes. So that's how you do it. You have to satisfy the curiosity, then go back to life. Cause like I'm just always curious. Like, and I think it's
Yeah.
interesting too. I think, as I say that it comes with earlier stage, career, maybe it kind of doesn't. Cause you and I are not early. And I am in the same way where
No.
I'm like, I want to touch all the things. I want to understand how it works. And then maybe don't need to use it, but I want to understand it. So yeah,
It's a
it's
cool thing.
interesting.
It's one of those things that I like to when I talk to like more early career people that are still trying to figure out where they fit. And it's like
Hmm.
there is a place for you if this is how you work. And there's a
Yes.
place for you if you are the I want to go deep dive all the way down to like how some one thing works. And there's definitely a place for you too. Ooh, hi Ryan. And it's there's a place for everybody in tech, and it's you don't have to like think a certain way. Like so for me, I
Yes.
know for a long time my imposter syndrome was like I do go more broad than specific into one thing, and I was like
Sure.
I'm never going to be able to be an expert in anything, but I don't have to be an expert in one thing to be successful and happy in tech. I can do this way. I do want to get there are things that I want to get deeper on, but I'm never going to be like the Matt Pocock of TypeScript. Like I'm never going to be that guy. And it took a long time for me to be okay with that, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm perfectly fine with it now, but in the beginning of my career, I was like, okay, I got to find the thing that I'm the best at and go all in. And that's just
Mm.
not how my mind works. And it's not how I problem solve.
Yep.
So there's other people that are better than me to be the expert. And then I like to help bring those people together.
Yes. No, I love that a lot. Honestly, I can relate a lot to that. I've had opportunities or sort of stages in my career where I very much like just went deep into a very specific thing and tried to become, I shouldn't say tried, I definitely reached sort of an expert level. I say sort of, right? Because there's always that level of,
You never
we
feel
can
like a real
always
expert as
grow.
a developer. You
Yes.
always feel like you're a step behind whatever is
Yes.
going on.
There's always more, that's why, right? So I felt like I was, like, semi there, definitely mastered Joomla from front to back and understood that entire code base,
Man, I feel
but
like I never understood Joomla. I was so glad to get away
it's so
from that.
confusing.
I
It
hated it
was
so much.
oh my gosh, it was so confusing, but I fell into it, and we won't get into that story because we should really talk about Wix's Dev Tools, but
Oh
I sort
yeah,
of
Wix.
fell
That's why
into
we're
it
here. What are we doing here?
and
Just hanging out.
yeah, exactly. But when I fell into it, there was just opportunities, and so I'm like, okay, there's money here, and so then I mastered. But then I moved on to Drupal. I didn't master Drupal, but I very much love Drupal. Then I moved on to WordPress, and I would say I definitely mastered WordPress. I knew that
Yeah, I felt
that
WordPress
stack
made
from.
sense to me because I was
Mhm.
Drupal, Joomla, and WordPress were the first three of those types of platforms. They were really the
Mm,
only ones that were around, at least when I kind of got started. And
yep.
so I was doing mostly .NET development, but our other contracts would be like in these CMS systems. WordPress
Mhm.
was the only one that made sense to me, and I was like, okay, I get this. It has some oddities that I wish were different, but it was
Same.
before a lot of evolution that has happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joomla and Drupal were maddening to me. I felt like I was always fighting with them.
Drupal was very, very hard to learn until I actually had a full-time role. Because Drupal for me was like a just a freelance and like let me play with it because I understand Joomla and WordPress. But then when I actually landed my first DevRel role, actually, they were a Drupal and a WordPress sort of
Mm.
hosting agency or hosting solution. So then I got pretty ingrained in Drupal, and then I understood it, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, Drupal's better than all of them." But
Drupal
as
devs felt that way back in the day, and always like, I think you guys are crazy.
yeah, but it's interesting though because like you have to understand sort of all the dynamics, right? So, anyways, PHP open source CMSs, they're great. They have their
Yeah,
home.
they
Let's talk
really
about
do.
Wix.
Oh yeah. So I made a little chart first to try to show you the system as I understand it because we have
Mm.
so much documentation at this point. We have so many entry points depending on what you might be searching for. So I made like a little clean thing that I to try to
Mm.
explain to you all the tools that are available. And
Love
then you
it.
can ask
Love
me as
it.
many questions as you want.
Let's
Let me
do it.
see. Let's see how sharing works in here. I want to share not this side, entire screen, but that side. All right. I feel like every platform is a little bit different. I'm always like, all right, what am I about to share? Let's find out. All right. So do you see like an
Thankfully for
Excel
you,
draw?
I do, and I can turn that sharing on. So I will turn that on.
Oh,
There we go.
wee, look at that. So, oh,
Yay.
it looks tiny for me. Hopefully it's not tiny for anybody viewing. Is it
It is
tiny for
huge.
you?
No,
It's
it's huge
huge
for
for
us.
you.
Yep,
Fantastic.
and we are not in the video, but I might finesse it and mess around with it, but let's just do this so it's full screen right
Yeah.
now, and then I can bring us into a corner in a little bit.
Yeah, totally. So basically, Wix is the company, right? And you can do all these different things in it. So Wix Studio is like the low code platform, but this is the agencies and developers toolings one. This is the one with the advanced design, the advanced everything that you need. You still have classic Wix, which is likely the first thing if you've made a Wix site that you've ever experienced. And that one's a little more limited because it's not a responsive platform. It has
Mm,
more limited design tooling. It doesn't have things to help you run your business if you're an agency. It's a little more geared towards the DIY user that maybe isn't ever going to own an agency, but they have a business idea and they want to be able to build a website, but they don't want to be distracted by the kind of tools that aren't super relevant to them. So it's a cleaner interface in some way, like classic Wix, but it also is much more limited if you're depending on what you're building. But like I set up my wedding website on classic Wix. I didn't need all our
nice.
responsive tooling, this and that. I just needed to slap up my wedding website quick. So I used classic Wix for that.
Ah,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah, so Wix Studio is more like our professional low code platform.
Very cool.
So we'll get back to that. Obviously, they're hosted on Wix. We take care of a lot of stuff for you. Now we also have, and this started maybe last year, maybe the end of the year before, but let's just say last year. Wix
So this
Headless.
is very new. I've never heard of the headless, so this is cool.
Very new, very new. So this has obviously broke it apart, traditional headless. Now the cool thing about Wix headless to me, there's a lot of headless platforms out there right now. So because Wix has been around since 2006 as a no-code platform, and they've built, stores, they've built a CMS, they've built a bookings platform, events, CRM, they've built all these things. So they have all these business solutions.
Mhm.
So instead of just launching a headless CMS, you can access any Wix business solution headless. So
Mm.
that's where the power really is, I think, in our solution versus
Mhm.
if you just want a CMS, there's a million out there. We may or may not be the one that you like the best. But if
Yeah.
you like want a CMS and a CRM and like all this other, like if you want a bunch of, if you know your business is more multifaceted,
Mhm.
I think this is a really good solution to consider because I feel like when at least the last time I evaluated headless solutions, they all kind of did one thing. You got like your headless store or your headless CMS or like,
Mhm.
and they none of them had a full solution. So then you still find yourself having to like hook up a bunch of random stuff together.
Yeah, you're like multi-integrating more things, which is always a pain point when you're doing that. So if you
Always
can
a
have sort
pain
of that
point.
one.
The more things you add and then you piecemeal together, it's like these more things that are potentially going to break in the future. It makes your maintenance nightmare situation. So this is really good for somebody that, yeah, wants all that back end of Wix, essentially, all those business solutions, but does not like our drag and drop editor. Maybe you like working in the front end. You are a developer that does not want to learn to use a drag and drop editor at all. That sounds
Yeah.
miserable to you, but you don't want to necessarily reinvent the wheel for like
Mhm.
your e-commerce backend. You want that dashboard there to be able to just import all your products and set all the pricing and all that. You don't want to have to build that part, but you want to make your really nice front end. You're a Next developer, whatever stack you use. So that's what that's for. And that is really cool, very new. And then we also, the newest thing is app developers. Now what we call apps to me, and maybe this will make more sense to you coming from like WordPress and other environments, it's basically our plugin developers.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
we call them app developers. So there's a whole, previously, if you wanted an app on a Wix website, so say you want, because like, if you want stores, like if you want an e-commerce solution, like that's an app you install, but we created that. So it's Wix, Wix developed, there's a whole team behind it. So but Wix stores is an app, right? So
Yep.
previously we made all the apps. It was completely closed system. You can't build for it. You can't do anything. You want something from us, you're going to be requesting that and voting on it and trying to get it on our roadmap, right? So what we did this past year was open up our app marketplace to developers outside of our system. And so now you can build either for your personal use or to sell apps. And we actually just crossed our milestone of 1,000 apps on the marketplace that have been built by developers, right? Which is crazy
Ooh.
how small that number is when you think about like WordPress or some system that's been around for a while and allows plugin development. For like, if you are that kind of a developer, even if you have like apps on other systems, like you made a Shopify app, you made a WordPress app, if you can now make that for Wix too. Like you can,
Ooh.
we need to do to hook it up to our system and make it fit there too. And the thing is, like, this to me is the biggest opportunity for developers to make money right now because the app marketplace is so small right now because we
Mm.
just opened this up last year. So how you build though, so obviously we have Studio. If we'll go back to Studio, that's the traditional low code drag and drop. You use a developer tooling called Velo. Velo is basically vanilla JavaScript with some like Wix specific things that you do. But you can think about it in the same way that you think about JavaScript. If you know JavaScript, you will have no problem getting your mentality up to speed in our system.
Oh,
It's
that's cool.
yeah, front end, back end code. It's a Node.js environment on the back end. You have access to databases. Our databases are built on top of Mongo as far as like your mental model goes, but they're just called collections. They're just little tables back there. So even if you don't know anything about databases,
Doesn't
make
matter.
it doesn't matter. But if you know, then you can kind of think about how you might want to structure your data. And yeah, I made a little site, so I'll show you that in a minute. So I support,
Ooh.
or also for help. We have different DevRel for our different teams right now. This
Oh,
is the
nice.
studio is the product I support, so I know it the best. But yeah, you also can use Wix blocks, which I'll talk about. It's more relevant to app development, but basically you can make an app with Wix blocks for our sites. You can make a little block, and that's a plugin. Maybe every time you make a site for a client, they always want a particular kind of banner, and it's like your thing and everybody loves it. And you put it on like every client site. You can make your own plugin that you just have in your own plugin library. It's private to you and your clients, and you don't sell it. It just makes your life easier because you don't have to code it every single time or design it every single time, because Wix blocks allows you to do design and code as well, similar to our full drag and drop platform.
That's
So
amazing because
cool.
like in so just to sort of speak for anyone
Yeah.
who's listening, like if you're doing that in sort of like WordPress, right? It's like you're building a custom plugin, which is a pretty big undertaking. You can build a
Mhm.
plugin that's just like a single file, but you're still doing all the work, right? And having to call and bring everything in. Where like if you think about or you're creating a custom theme, right? Which is what I did. Is I ended up creating a custom WordPress
Yeah,
theme
we
that
did
was
that all
like
the time too.
my de facto, right? And it was like the Tessa theme and it had all the things that it needed and I think it was called like I don't know, startup or rocket ship or I don't know, something with a ship and like a spaceship, anyways. But
Mhm.
long story short, that's very, very, very cool because that is something that
Yeah.
can really set you aside from, if someone is building websites to be able to do that. And I think we often see a lot of like, type of agencies and different website sort of shops, right? That maybe they're not extremely technical, but they know what they know and they're very good at sort of
Mhm.
bringing these together and like anyways, I'm going to digress now, but really
It's cool
excited
though,
about
right? But
this.
you actually
Yeah,
reminded
super
me of
cool.
something I forgot to put on my handy little chart
Ooh.
here that's like my understanding of our ecosystem, is that you
Mm.
can also build full templates now and sell them. We opened up a template
Yay.
marketplace this year. Totally forgot about that too. Again, another huge opportunity for developers that are already in these kinds of ecosystems somewhere else. We
Mhm.
never allowed the selling of templates. Now, maybe you figured
Mm.
out a way to do it on your own or something like that, but we actually have a marketplace where you submit it to us. We do your code review and your check. Like that's the same thing for our apps. Like the other thing that's really cool about this, I get so excited, so I start going all over the place. But we review everything. So one of the pain points of WordPress is like as a developer, you need to be good enough to assess somebody's plugin that it's good
Mhm.
because it's
Yep.
open source. So it's like the open
Yep.
source becomes a pro and a con. With us, it's a little longer of a process, but when you submit a template that can be design and code, when you submit an app, design and code, or just code, whatever you want to do, you're getting it reviewed by our team.
Oh,
We're gonna,
that's
if we
awesome.
see a security issue, if we see something like it's not responsive, it's not gonna work on the sites, whatever, like we're gonna send you back comments. You're not gonna be able to launch it until you fix it. And so somebody coming to our marketplace as a user that doesn't know how to assess these things can confidently pull one off of our marketplace, because if we put it there, we're saying we assess this, it's secure, it does what it says it's going to do, whatever, it's not going to leak your API keys, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that's pretty cool too. It does make the process take a little longer, and I know those teams are always working on how to do that more efficiently since it's much newer for us to
Yep.
do this, because you do have to think about scale. Like right now, it's our marketplaces are much smaller, but as more and more people learn about these opportunities and start building more and more, I'm sure that they'll have to work on how to scale that better.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like
cool.
just to dive in quick, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a really good sort of opportunity for someone who is like new to tech or new to sort of
Mhm.
building websites or diving into this and they're looking to kind of expand or build a career around it. Like I think it's a really great way to start, right? Because there's a revenue stream opportunity there. You could start to like, nerd out on Wix and learn all the things and then
Yeah.
create some of those because whenever these ecosystems are starting to create these kinds of marketplaces, I feel like it's notoriously a great time to start to build up your reputation too, because I can
Oh,
assume
yeah.
you can check me on that, but I can assume that there's like an author and sort of you can
Mhm.
go into that marketplace and see the other things that you've created. And,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking
like,
back.
you're building that rep, you're as quality, and, like, your clients
Yep.
can just go see this stuff, your potential clients.
Right.
It's
And it
cool.
yeah, and it gives you like a way in that you can control. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, right? With WordPress, if you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna make a theme," you have to make a theme, then you gotta try to find a way to monetize it, you gotta try to sell it.
Mhm.
There's not like a place to just go put them. Where
Yeah, there's
here
no
with
one
Wix,
place to go.
yeah, it's a
Um
come in, build some stuff, build some templates and put it in our marketplace. And you could literally can start to create sort of a little career for yourself around that.
Yeah, and we have like a lot of companies, like we have a partner program, and we're always looking for
Right.
ways to help. We want our partners to make more money. It's good for everybody involved. So
Totally.
it's like we're going to figure out how to help you, how to boost our partners' apps, our partners' sites, our partners' agencies, whatever. Like so, and as somebody like I'm in the community, so from a community perspective, like how can we help our partners do better all the time is a huge focus. Like, so the closer you get
Yes.
to a company like this that has launched these things, we want it to be successful. Um, it's like we're very deeply involved with the community and like talking to all the builders that are diving into these new platforms, being like, what do you need? How can we help you? Because it is
Yes.
new. So those kind of early adopters also get that like really close touch with a company that like you don't always get.
Yes. Huge shout out to anyone who might be listening or who listens in the future. Like, capitalize on the opportunity if you
Yeah,
are new to tech, because
seriously.
it's in a beautiful place to take your career and just go. And you don't have to like stay in web development forever, right? You can expand
No.
somewhere, but it'll get you started. So,
Well, and
anyways.
learning a platform like this doesn't negate your other learning. And I
Exactly.
think like people get, or at least, early career, like they were like, oh, I want to tie myself to only the stacks that are going to get me the type of job I want. This like one doesn't negate the other, and especially
Exactly.
with Wix because it is a JavaScript based platform and a lot of people are focusing on becoming JavaScript developers. It's different. It's like I said, it's not frameworked JavaScript. You're not going to learn, Next here. You're not going to learn Vue here, but you're still going to learn the basics of how to think. So if you are interested in JavaScript, in Node.js environments, things like that, like the learning isn't like it's not going to hurt you to learn
Yeah.
this too, and hopefully or monetize maybe earlier as you still go on your journey for whatever kind of long-term plan you have for yourself as a developer. And honestly, then you always also have this skill. Like I can't just due to the obviously working for the type of company I do, like I can't freelance on the side right now. But if I
Sure.
could, you best believe I would. This is one of the things I would be offering because this wouldn't take up all of my free time to also offer.
Yes, exactly. And the thing about it too is like, really quickly on this topic, one of my first jobs was going into a product company, and that product company had to integrate into different tools. And so basically you had to take a little snippet of code, think of like Google Analytics, right? You had to
Mhm.
take a snippet of code, put it inside of a website. And my job was to actually take that snippet of code and to functionally put it inside of the website for the client and to make sure that it was functioning. So I touched over like 100 different content management systems in that role. It was incredible because when I went into any future interviews, if a company was like, "Oh, I used gosh, I can't even remember the name. It had like a kangaroo for like its logo." They're like, "Well, we use this like really, really unknown content management system." And I was like,
Of course, there's
"Actually, I've
always
I've
somebody.
used that." Yeah, and they're like, "What? You've used it?" And I was like, "Yes." So it's just something that can forever be like if they bring up Wix or anything that's related to it, you'll still be able to speak to the experience and what you learned. And so yeah, so much
Exactly.
power to it.
Yeah, and it's as complicated as you make it too. Like you can
Right.
make weird stuff here. So that's studio and like some of the opportunity there. So if we go from there and say, okay, I don't like drag and drop. I'm never going to learn it. I think it's stupid. I want to write my front end code. Then we have Wix Headless for you. Like I said, now Wix Headless, we have a JavaScript SDK, and then there's REST APIs too. I highly recommend if you're interested in our headless platform, the SDK makes your life a lot easier unless you
Yeah,
really need
for
to
sure.
use the REST API to set up all your authentication and stuff. It's much easier with the SDK. But we also, and the cool thing about this, because it is so much newer, we have in our Discord community, the headless team manages their own channel in there right now because
Oh,
it is much
nice.
newer. And so like I said, it's one of those times when you get involved with that. It's like if you're having any issues, they're right there to help you. We
That's
have
incredible.
partnerships with Netlify and Vercel, so you can use our templates. We have fully coded Next.js templates right now that you
That's awesome.
can use, modify to your heart's content, and one-click deploy if you want to use Netlify or Vercel. You can also manage the hosting however you want.
Mhm.
You can use by using like say our e-commerce. If you want, you can use like Wix Pay and stuff like that. Like you can have us manage all of that stuff for you, set up your own payments, use Stripe, use whatever you're using. So it gives you, this is the first place that you get more flexibility, that I think is really cool.
Mhm.
Headless development is definitely complicated. So like I said, it's another way
Totally.
for you to to do something interesting, even if you're just adding to your portfolio, which
Mhm.
another aside, you can build on Wix for free. So even, and like, obviously I want you to continue to fund my employment by selling stuff. But the thing is you can actually learn through Wix. You could build a headless site. You could build a studio site. Like, unless you need to hook up payments, use some of our advanced marketing tools, advanced CRM tools. Like, you can launch a free site with us. Like,
That's
headless, obviously you
amazing.
have to figure out where you're going to host that, but
Yeah.
you can play around for completely free with everything. And until you really need to connect a domain, accept payments, accept bookings, whatever it is you're doing, you can actually build for your portfolio here in a very cost-effective way while you're
Ooh,
learning. So
yes.
that's it's pretty crazy too, I think, honestly, how much is included in our platform for free. So
It's
that's headless.
That's interesting too, because also whenever someone is like, so, like we were just talking about how we just like to like tinker with things, right? We want to
Mhm.
like build and experiment and try stuff and bring people together and kind of all the things. And I think when you do that, you're always like spinning up sort of these like one off either situations. Either you're creating something that's like an app
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, well, that didn't work, but you're still curious and trying, right? Or if you're like, just creating like a landing page or you're,
Yeah.
doing an event like this or whatever, like there are just so many different things that, especially when newer in your career or really anytime, where you just want something and it doesn't matter, you don't need the fancy domain name behind it, you can just
Yeah.
experiment. And I think that's always really really good. And I think that a lot of those tools that used to be sort of, hey, let me just spin something up so I can play with it and send you a
Mhm.
link, like don't let you send those links often anymore. And so I think this is just a
Yeah.
really
Free
good
tiers have gotten
opportunity to,
really small in a lot of
yes,
platforms.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
so you can still do a lot here. And I even tell people, like, with the low code platform with Wix Studio, I cannot tell you the amount of like customers we have that started in full no code and then very slowly started dabbling in the JavaScript side of things, maybe with just a click event for the first time or something like that, but like
Mhm.
got excited like anybody does. Like, if you're going to be a developer is the first time you made code work and you got excited about it.
Yes,
No matter
yes.
how long it took. So, and then they learned, because they could just focus on like the business logic of their front end and back end, they could learn JavaScript through us. Of course, to a point, you're going to need to go
Yeah.
external to us and really learn it eventually, but it really empowers you to see your work and accomplish it. Because I think about like my early dev days, and fighting with your dev environment as an early dev is one of the most painful things, when all you want to do is see like your cool animation live
Yes,
or
yes,
something.
exactly. Yes.
And like, you're like, I just want to make this button do something and I can't run my program. And I don't care about that side of it. I don't care about DevOps right now. I don't care about this. I just want to run the code. And you'll be stuck on something really dumb that has nothing to do with actually what you're even trying to learn. So you have to go down a side rabbit hole to figure that
Exactly.
out. And it's like,
Yes.
it takes away a lot of that. So it's like, we don't like advertise it as a platform to learn on, but I've seen so many of our like long-term users that end up building their own dev agencies around the idea that like this isn't as scary a place to try.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then from there you can go as deep as you want.
Yes. Well, I feel like that's kinda like what WordPress is, right? Is like WordPress, you
Yeah,
can go spin up
exactly.
a WordPress site and requires no skills whatsoever, but then you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, well, I wanna change something. Let me dabble." And I think those are beautiful platforms because just like
I
what you
love it.
said, you're not dealing with all of it, right? You're not trying to figure out all the things you need to understand, databases
Mhm.
and infrastructure and hosting and all the things, right? But you're focused on like, "Okay, let me learn bits and pieces at a time," and you can pick and
Yeah.
choose what you wanna learn.
Yeah, it's a
I love it.
friendly place. It's like, it's not a place that tells you you're not good enough, or a place that
Yes.
tells you you can't try this, or you have to have known XYZ or this language, or you can just go in and try, and it's a really welcoming space to be. So I like supporting a community and a product that's like, we don't care who uses this. We're going to meet you where you're at and give you those tools to succeed. And
Aw.
that's really nice. So like I said, this is the coolest thing here to me right now, is the Wix for app developers. So app developers, I think, have it really good right now. You can build in a million different ways. And again, the marketplace is very new. So you can use Wix blocks to build an app. And what Wix blocks is it essentially is like a mini version of the Studio low code platform. So Wix blocks
Hmm.
is a drag and drop widget builder. Then
Yep.
you can extend it with the Velo, the JavaScript code, if you need code, because you can build a widget with or without code. So you
Got
can
it.
build with this, and that's the closest to native, right? Because you're building
Yep.
in the system.
Yep.
So you can also use our SDK and our REST APIs. And the way you would use those is if you're building an app with the CLI. So we have a CLI for apps as well. Really
Nice.
good for the person that comes with their own stack. They're probably a traditional
Yep.
developer versus a low-code developer. But they want to build something that'll work in the Wix system. We have a Wix
Yep.
design system. It's a storybook that you can use, all the design system we use, so that you can make your app look native in our environment. And then you use the SDK and REST APIs and the CLI all kind of together to create that.
Yeah.
And then you also, this is the other cool thing, I think, depending on where you're coming from and how you're building, we can host it for you, or you can self-host your app too.
Sure.
Like, we're not forcing you to host it on our platform. I would say if you can build it as close to native as possible, you're going to have access to the most kind of tooling that works well in our environment. But depending on what you're making, you might not even need that. Because like I said, we're at that kind of simple part of the app. Like somebody, I did a webinar with 2 of our app devs recently, and one of his most successful apps that he has launched on the market right now is just like a QR code generator. Like, we're in simple times here.
Yeah,
Like,
that was like so basic.
We're in early times here. Like, you can go through our like feature request board is public. Like, go through and find the idea that you can build that we're not building right now. Just go, and we might never build. You can usually to kind of get an idea of where that is going, and just start building stuff for people.
More opportunities.
So cool. Like, I think the app developer opportunity is really, really cool right now. And again, that's another one where, because it's so early, there's a dedicated team. They have their own DevRel team. We actually just today launched 4 app videos for how to build, one for blogs, one for CLI. So we have one even just how to monetize, like how to sell your apps. Like, so we want you to be successful. It's good for everybody.
Exactly.
So yeah, they're making their own content, and they have a channel in our Discord community too, where it's like, if you're stuck, you don't get it, something's weird, like, and the app developers that have already been successful are in there and super amped too, so they're always helping out each other as well.
So that's the perfect like developer community and ecosystem, right? Very welcoming. Really, there's an opportunity to make some money. There's an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to hang out with the team. There's also an opportunity to hang out with those eager developers who have paved the way for you before you got there.
It's like it's a fun new time. It's a really exciting time, and I like I said, because I host the studio product, I don't know it as well. But I think about, like, I host office hours every other week in our server. And we're just getting to that point where almost even all of the people that we're building just on studio, they're getting curious, and others starting to ask more app dev questions and things like that. So it's like everybody's getting really excited about it. So it's a cool spot to be, but lots of opportunity there. But yeah, I was trying to think of the most simple way to explain to you, like, you're doing so much right now.
You are.
It's everywhere. And like, you can really use Wix how you want, and you can come to us with your own stack, and there's still some value for you depending on what you want to build, whether it's an app or headless, or if you want to learn something new, you want to learn a low code system. 7th. Oh man, I thought it was last Thursday, Nick.
I missed it in the chat.
No.
He thought that it was the 7th. Yeah. We thought last week.
Oh boy. Oh well. You can listen.
He's here now. You're here now, Nick. You're here for the last 15 minutes of great fun.
All right. So before I show you the studio site, I made you Tessa. I made Tessa as a service.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And that's what I'm actually trying to build. I'm literally trying to build Tessa as a service.
If I had the time and knew what I was doing, so obviously, like, everybody's into AI agents right now. I was like, I wonder if I can make an AI agent Tessa. And then I was like, what am I doing? I was like, don't.
See, that's our curiosity. What can we go build?
I want to find a reason to build one because I'm very curious about them.
Okay, well, I actually am working on building that. So if you want to just like come hang, I know that you have a full-time job, but if you want to come hang a little bit, you can bring some Wix goodness into it because that's
Yeah.
actually what I'm trying to figure out right
Oh,
now is
that's
how
cool.
to build an app with an AI agent that is trained on the things I'm training it on and what I'm prompting it on. So, yeah,
Oh, that's
very
cool.
exciting future project.
All right. Well, let me show you this in our last 15 minutes. Okay, so this is like if you're in Wix Studio, so in the low code platform, the
Mhm.
platform that I support, this is your
Oh,
dashboard.
it's
There are
really
all kinds of stuff here depending on what you have installed. We're
Yep.
not going to stay here though, because I want to show you. Oh no! Oh, we're loading again. There's Tessa on demand.
I love it. I love
So
it.
what I did here, just so you know what you're looking at, this is a template. I didn't make this. I just started a template. It was like um, some oh, I just put lorem ipsum in here. So what I did though, so you know what you're about to look at, and I'll show you where everything kind of lives in Wix to give you an idea of what's possible here.
Love it.
I asked ChatGPT to generate me, I think like 20 quotes of yours. So I don't know where you'll have to tell me if these sound accurate. I don't know where it found
Oh,
them
this is
from.
going to be good. I can't wait.
And then I imported it into, so we'll start with the CMS. So I imported it into Tessa-isms, which is my 20 item collection, and it just has a quote and some likes in there. So yeah, so I generated content, imported it in there. We have our own like AI wizard you can have to create demo content for you, but I wanted very Tessa-isms here, so I went to ChatGPT for that. Then
I'm
down
so intrigued.
here, I have a get quote, and then it'll show up here, and I have a little button you can like it. So
Oh, nice.
literally, when you turn dev mode on, is this little guy here. You have access to, and this is just some pages that came with the template, but you have access to all of your pages with their code. You
Dang.
have a master page, which is just code that runs on like every page. You have CSS
Yep.
if you want it. You have access to all your M packages here. Velo packages are like if you make package up just Velo code. You
Yep.
have custom apps is the Wix apps. Remember I said you can install them here if you want just your own private ones. You can search your code, get to your backend. I made you into an API as well. We'll get to that. If you hate this, if you're looking at this picture right now and you're like, I would never want to work in there, it looks miserable. You can also
No,
just
this looks
connect.
beautiful.
You can connect to GitHub though, and then you can use whatever IDE you want.
Dang.
Yeah, so like I didn't set it up for this demo, but a lot of our
Yeah.
developers that work all the time, they're not working in this drag around situation. They're creating a repo, they're working with their teams, they're versioning their code, they're doing all the things that you should do.
Yep.
When you're making a quick demo, this is all I need.
Yeah.
The other option we have, this Wix IDE is like a cloud-based VS Code.
Well, that's cool.
But it's trained, it understands our system. So you can also,
Mm.
obviously, like every cloud-based thing, it takes its time loading. But it's just VS Code, and it has your back here, and it has a little AI assistant. So if you're learning our environment, you just be like, code me up a click event or whatever if you don't know how to do that. So
That's
for
very
learning
cool.
here, but this doesn't have like a memory. So
Mm.
it's the code is stored in your site, but you wouldn't be able to at this time, and I know they're still working on it, like you wouldn't be able to set this up how you want it, and it wouldn't keep that forever. But I don't know if any of
Yeah.
them do that, because I know Gitpod, when I was working with Gitpod a lot, I always had to have like a little configuration like
Mm.
file
Mhm.
and way and like little instructions to remind myself how I wanted to set up that environment before I started working. So that might just be a cloud thing. So you have this
Gotcha.
option too if you just want like a quick way to use something that's a little more familiar. But for me, I'm in here. And so you can see, you probably the thing that people usually notice first is $W on ready. This is your page on ready function, and it looks like
Mm.
jQuery. It's not jQuery, but
Mm.
when Velo was made was when jQuery was really hot and
Yep.
people understood it. And so it was
I'm
actually
a jQuery girl.
yeah, right. And I don't hate it. It's a conscious choice to make it like that for familiarity and all of that.
Yep.
In here, all we're doing, I had import Wix data. That's so you can interact with the CMS. I'm having it pull a random quote. So you can see like this is just vanilla JavaScript stuff.
Mm. Mhm.
I have a button here that when it's going to pull that random quote ID and then update your number of likes for that. So we have that. So if we want to preview, so say I made changes to this, I don't know if they're good and I want to publish it. I don't want to publish it yet. You can also preview everything in one click too. So you have like a test environment, which is nice.
Yep.
So then you just click here. There you go. This is the first Tessa-ism we're getting. Does this sound like something you would say?
When you teach others, you not only share knowledge, but also reinforce your own understanding. I've never once said that, but I could say things like that.
Yeah,
I'm very
okay,
much about the
right.
roots, right? Like, how do we get to the root of figuring out how to be great, you know? And that's like, that's very much an essence of that.
So you might be like, I love Tessa on demand, but I don't want it only contained in this website. I was giggling so much when I made this, but like again, like look at I made this in like minutes because I was like, oh crap, I have a live stream and I have nothing to show her, and she might want to see something.
Oh my
I
gosh,
also
I love
exposed
it.
you as a service that you can ingest in other places.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
that's another cool thing that is you can write backend code. So I wrote, an HTTP function that we can just, where do I have it over here? You can refresh it, and this is your, or here, come on back. Let's get another one.
Oh, I could totally have said that.
The best developers aren't the ones who know anything. They're the ones who know how to learn anything. So I can call this API that I just created anywhere. So you can ingest Tessa as a service from your website somewhere else. So if you want to put this on an app that's going to be on your watch every morning and tell you an inspiring quote from Tessa, you now can integrate that, but still have your live website. So,
you know what?
So this is as far as I
there's
got
a lot of
my Tessa agent.
This is very, very, very entertaining. But entertainment aside, this is amazing because like you really can start to like dabble in different bits of code, playing in an app. There's no like, yes, if you take this live, right, then of course you want to be a little bit careful about how you're testing and writing code and deploying and all the things. But like,
and if
you're
you have
literally
like you want to put something on your API so that nobody can make it bad.
Yeah, no one can change the Tessa-isms to be negative, but
would never want that. Yeah,
would not be true Tessa-isms. But I think it's interesting because there's so much that is happening and so much that you can do that like this almost like just has me thinking about like, how can you sort of just start to play, right? And there's also maybe like even a whole venture of content ideas around bringing developers and allowing them to scale up their skills through Wix, through even Studio, because there's just all the things that you just showed me are very technically difficult in some cases to at least make the underlying infrastructure. And you're just like, no, let's just make an API that pops out Tessa-isms in literally 30 minutes. That's bananas.
Yeah, because I just like the template would have taken me the longest. Like I'm not really as good in the design because you have all of this. There's all different kinds of ways you can structure this to be, because it's a responsive. You can set all your breakpoints. You can use CSS grid if you want. You can use whatever you want, but you need to understand design principles to build in here. So this this isn't for the my grandma wants to open a cookie store website. That's what your classic Wix. And we still, again, we still support those users because like at a baseline, this is a welcoming place. We want anybody to be able to build, but professional developers and designers and agency owners, they have more needs than the average user. And so, and you can drill down and see where everything is in here. Like the design tools are great as well. And there's a lot you can do out of the box. And then the platform is any wall that you run into, we're trying to make that a door you can open. Like you don't have to stop there. It's the same thing. Like when we launched the ability to edit CSS only came out, I want to say, again, in the past year and a half. Like you used to be stuck with our design tools and couldn't really write any CSS. And now if you run into a design thing you don't like, write your own CSS.
Yes,
it's really cool. So it's come along. And the other thing that I think people do get really surprised about is they know you're going to be able to write a click event in here. They're like, oh yeah, we expect you can write a little bit of code, but would you would you expect you can expose an API? Would you expect you can write a
No,
server-side function in here?
no way. That's
And you can, like,
yeah.
there's just a lot you can do. And you can prototype very quickly, which is huge, especially if you're like a founder or somebody that has an idea. Prototype it in something like this, if it's possible, if it makes sense to do
Yeah.
it here, and see what happens, and
Mhm.
test your market fit maybe before you go too crazy. Like,
Yes.
it's really a business minded platform, um, in a
I
lot of
agree,
ways.
and honestly, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm totally gonna go build my website on Wix because, like, I'm, like, in that space, right? I'm in the space of, like, how you were on to me in Tessa on Demand, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to actually literally create Tessa on Demand through, like you said, like an AI agent or in some other way. I've got a few different things I'm chasing down. I
Yeah,
also am chasing down capturing developer feedback, like, at
yeah,
scale, which is, like, a whole beautiful thing. But nonetheless, like, I don't quite know exactly where I'm going to take the direction, right? I'm validating, I'm prototyping, I'm sort of playing, I'm bringing that to clients. And like, this is so much more than I ever expected it to be. And I'm so
right?
pumped because honestly, I've been sitting here like, why can't someone make a WordPress friendly like content management system that someone can get into and just stupid simple for creating content, creating whatever. But then
Mhm.
I want all the complicated developer things, but I don't necessarily need them to always be complicated. I just
Yeah,
want them to be simple until I want them to be complicated. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, I'm really asking a lot of a platform. Like, that's a lot to ask. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's
maybe it's
Wix.
not. Maybe it's not. Yeah, and that's why, like I said, I get really excited, and
Crazy.
I think that, um, I think because we've been around for so long, people forget to see what we're doing now. And obviously
Yes.
that's part of why I exist,
Right.
is to be available and be like, "Hey, like, check this out." And we work with lots of content creators. If anybody watching is a, like, content creator with a large following and thinks this is really cool, like, DM me. Like, we work with influencer level content creators, but we want people that are interested in learning. You want to we don't want people to just do it. Like,
Yeah.
if you think it's a cool product and you think it's relevant to your audience, then yeah, reach out to us for sure. Like,
Well, that's how
it's cool out
advocacy
there.
works. You know,
Yeah,
like you gotta be into it. Like you have
you
to
have
have,
to. Oh my gosh,
you
yeah.
know, and coming to kind of the back to the DevRel stuff, right? It's like when you are working with products in the way that you're working with Wix, like you have to be like this about it. You have to be excited. You have to go in and experiment and really like shed light on like, oh my gosh, I think this is so cool because you now have convinced me that I'm like, this is cool. She
Well,
is so right. I have to go check it out. And like that is the essence of like a good influencer or sort of advocacy type of a
yeah.
program.
I'm
Yeah.
not here. I don't need to show you everything. I just need to show you enough to again, like, go back to the beginning, to pique the curiosity.
Yes.
Developers will
Exactly.
figure it out on their own. Is there something here that makes you curious about, could I build XYZ here, or what's actually possible? And yeah, and most, like I said, any place you run into a wall, there's probably an escape hatch now. Like, they've gotten really good at opening up where people need it. Like, even like the database I just showed you. Maybe you're like, I hate that,
Yep.
and I have a data is, you can just hook up an external database to this. We don't care.
That's freaking
like,
awesome.
like
You
it's
just
just every time you run into a wall and something, I'll be like, well, you can do this. E-commerce is, I'd say, the biggest place that they've expanded a lot, because e-commerce is the same everywhere, like, until it isn't, until there's one
mhm.
situation where you need to apply a special fee, a special tax, there's some local level law you need to adhere
Yeah.
to. And so you can inject into our logic in a way you didn't used to be able to. And it's just
Wow.
really cool.
Okay, I know what I'm gonna be doing this afternoon. No, I'm just kidding, I have plenty of work to
Yay.
do, but
I know, right? I hate it
at
when I
some
learn
point
something exciting and I'm like, oh, I have work to do.
I know, that's what I coded all weekend long almost, and it was absolutely glorious because I
Oh,
have not dove wow, I can't speak today. I have not dove back into being a developer, I think, for many, many years. I mean, obviously, you know how DevRel works. Like you're coding and you're bringing things together, but it's not at the same scale at which when you're just like
no,
a
it's
free
different.
agent to dev, you know?
I'm making Tesla on demand demos in like 30 minutes.
Right.
I'm not launching production code anymore. It's been over
Yeah.
3 years. I don't launch production code anymore. I do realize the skill set is different. Like,
It's, a part of me, I don't know about you, but a part of me has been pretty sad about it, honestly, because I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm not a developer anymore. But I'm like, okay, a lot of people are like, "Tessa, stop with the
It
imposter
is, you do
syndrome. You're
get sad
still a
though,
developer."
you get
But
sad
it's
about it, but it's
yeah,
not sad enough to go back to, but the thing is if I ever wanted to get there, those base skills are all the same, and it would
totally.
be some work to get back to the level I was before when I was on a team, but it's not
Yeah.
gone. It's
Yeah.
definitely not gone.
Exactly. I know, I realize that, and I also, like, gave myself grace. I'm like, "Okay, but I have all these other beautiful skills now, so now if I were to
Yeah.
go back to coding, like, it'd be, like, amazing," you know? So,
Yeah. Well,
anyways.
and as a curious person, you're always gonna be testing those skills. You haven't walked
Mhm.
away from it. You're not going to because it's not like in your nature to do so.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. All
yeah.
these clients that come in with all these new tools, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're so cool." And
Uh,
actually, I've almost, like, had to stop myself because 'cause I'm like, if I did start coding every day, I'd just be, like, messing with all the tools for my clients and not getting work done, which is not
there's so
good, so
many, there's so many.
yes.
But yeah. Oh, I'm glad you liked my Tesla on demand. I'll take her
I
down.
loved it. I
I'm
loved it.
gonna unpublish her so because I published her so we could see the API live. But
Oh, that's
so
awesome. It's beautiful.
or I'll just start
Okay.
sending inspiring quotes that we
Yeah,
don't know if you said or not ever.
yeah, just
Yeah,
start
just go
throwing
to
them around.
ChatGPT and be like, "Give me 20 inspiring quotes from this person," blah, 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 like,
I'm gonna go try it
see what it
now.
gives back to you.
You know, someone actually posted and they were like, it what were they putting? So it was Wesley Faulkner, if you know who Wesley is. He's
Yeah,
really, really great dude
super
in
nice.
DevRel for sure. Super nice, yeah. And he was just trying to figure out sort of the answers and the like the reproducibility. And so he's like, ask it for DevRel leaders. And every single time I got a different answer. Claude gave me something different, Chat GPT gave me something different. And then even if I would ask it again, I got something completely different. So honestly, it's a little fun to just go and experiment and see what you'll actually get off the internet. So the Tessa
Yeah.
Truisms was beautiful and hilarious, and I loved it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, like in my mind though, I was like, "Oh, because I was listening to podcasts and reading a lot about AI agents, and I haven't gotten to the
Mm.
building part yet." And I was like, I wonder if I can make a Tessa agent. And I was like, Amanda, you are trying to demo your own product. This is not the time.
Oh, you and I are the same. All weekend long, I kept getting derailed, and I was like, "Back to the task at hand, back to the task at hand," because I really was actually trying to start to build the prototype. I was using, like, V0 and Bolt and some of the other, like,
Ooh, I haven't
AI
tried Vizio
tools to
yet.
oh my gosh, you have to well, okay, I'm
I
not to get
just
into
recently
financial.
downloaded Cursor because again, like I try to keep myself focused on things relevant to the population. But since you can connect to GitHub, Cursor is relevant, and those kind of places are relevant to our developers who are using GitHub. And it's good for me to know if it's relevant and works well within the Wix ecosystem. So I was like, all right,
Mm.
downloading Cursor.
There you go. Well, maybe you could maybe your next challenge could be like, can I get V0 or Bolt? Cursor probably already does it really well, but V0 or Bolt to build in Wix because it is very opinionated, especially V0 because it's from Vercel, but it's very
Yeah.
opinionated in how it builds. And it always
Mm.
wants to give you like a modern JS stack. And I'm just like, I don't want that. Like, and it's
This
not
is
that I don't
what
want
I
it, but
tell
I'm like,
you.
what else can you build? You know? Well, and I don't know what else it can build in because everything that I can tell from what I can tell all ends up being like very modern JS type of a stack. So I'm really curious
Kind of
about.
makes sense, I would think, for that. Yeah, like you said, it's coming from Vercel and the population that they're probably targeting. It makes sense for them right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
who knows?
But Bolt
Yeah.
is still doing that too. So can you train Bolt maybe to build in Wix because it claims that you can build in anything. I just haven't pushed it that far. So
Ooh, let's
anyways,
see. Let's see.
new challenge for you to chase after.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
This has been absolutely lovely. Like
Yeah.
absolutely lovely. Very excited about checking out Wix. I will
You know where to find
definitely
me.
I know, right? I'll definitely distribute this because I think that there are a lot of developers, especially in my ecosystem, whom are in this stage of just trying to carve themselves into this ecosystem and build a career for themselves. And I think that diving into this and getting into the marketplace and maybe even just learning a bunch of different things through Wix feels like a
Yeah,
very, very,
prototyping,
very
like,
beautiful
yeah,
path.
figuring stuff
Yes.
out. And then if you want to keep building with us, do it. If you want to take it to another stack, then do that too. And also, honestly, diversifying your income streams is not a bad thing for anybody right
Oh,
now. This is a great place
ah,
to do it.
yep. I can speak to that
Yeah.
150,000,000%. Absolutely. But I will say to anyone listening, if you do decide to pick up Wix, make sure you do some beautiful content and some shout outs for Amanda. And then we'll make the world a better place all around so other devs can find Wix too.
Yeah, and obviously I'm very online, so Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere. If you can't find me, find Tessa, and if she'll find me for you. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm very open to conversations. If anybody had any questions, or after you watch the recording and you have questions after that.
Awesome. This has been so great. Thank you so much for your time. Hello, Nick, Ryan, and others in
Yeah,
the chat.
thank you, everybody.
We'll see y'all at the next one. Bye.